if you want to start. Okay. Hi, everybody, and welcome to our Hawaii GroupGAP informational webinar. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping things that we wanted to cover. So we're recording this meeting. If you want to turn your camera off for that reason, feel free to do so. But we're going to be posting the recording of this webinar to YouTube later on, and we can share that with you. Feel free to share it with whoever, and that'll be on our YouTube page. Secondly, if we're all muted right now, but if you do have a question or a comment, we're gonna have time to discuss that at the very end of the webinar. So keep yourself muted during the presentation. If you have something you want to throw into the chat while we're going through the slides, feel free, but please stay on mute during the presentation. Before we jump into content, if everybody could take a chance to introduce yourself into the chat, let us know your name, your farm or organization name, and then where you're tuning in from. And then lastly, we do have two super short surveys that we're asking you guys to fill out, one at the beginning of the presentation and one at the end. You'll see a link to the first set of survey questions in the chat, and you can also scan the QR code to get to that survey as well. But the answers will be anonymized and just used for grant reporting purposes. So the first survey questions only 2 questions, so super quick. But I'm going to now pass it off to our food safety director, Lisa Roden, who's gonna get into more of the meat and fun stuff of the presentation.
Thanks, Jess. I'm glad you said it was fun. So I'm going to start off today by just going over the agenda, what we will be covering. So this is kind of just a brief set of topics, but we will cover what is harmonized GAP and what is group GAP. So really the overarching goal of this presentation is for folks to understand what group GAP is and how it works. We're going to talk a little bit about food safety in Hawaii and why it's important that we talk about it and work towards getting folks certified. We're going to talk a little bit specifically about our program, again, how that works and what folks need to know to get into it and be successful. The benefits of the program, what we offer to participants. We've got a great set of member farm testimonies. So these folks will be talking by video, pre-recorded, a little bit about their experience with us. And then we'll cover what is the selection process and the steps that someone would need to take if they wanted to join the program. And then we're going to turn it over to you guys for any questions that you may have and answers that we can provide. So to kind of start it off, the first thing we want to do is explain the definition of GAP, the acronyms that we're using here. So good agricultural practices is what GAP stands for. It's a term that's thrown around a lot. And when we speak about it, particularly with USDA, what we're talking about is a specific set of criteria. USDA GAP is a program. And it is a voluntary program. So that means that it is not a federally mandated program. You don't have to do it, but it's what we call a market or buyer-driven certification program. So it's often required by a buyer looking to purchase produce. And the reason that they ask for that is because they really want a sense of how you are following food safety practices on your farm. The great thing about Group GAP is that it is really specific to help small and medium-sized fruit and vegetable producers. So GAP itself has been around for a long time, and it was a program that was designed very specifically for one farm to be audited and then pass their audit and get that certification. But USDA recognized a few years back that small and medium-sized farmers weren't really able to access GAP, the GAP program very well, because most of the time these operations are run by really small staff of people. It's usually a family operation or a very small number of folks there, and they don't have the capacity to really manage a food safety program. So USDA came up with GroupGAP back in the mid 2010s, and they decided that they were going to do a pilot to help more farmers get GAP certified under this group model. In Hawaii, we saw that and thought that it was a really great opportunity and a really good fit for our type of operations because we have so many small operations here in Hawaii. So we started working on a GroupGAP program. It took us a few years to actually get that program up and approved by USDA, but it did pass its audit in 2019. And we ran that program for a few years before merging with a program on the mainland. The biggest reason for merging with another GroupGAP entity was because it expands the number of farmers in our group. And by doing so, we actually reduce the number of audits that folks would need to have. So our goal with GroupGAP is to get Hawaii farmers certified, but even more than that, it's to do that in a way that's affordable and efficient for our farmers. We don't want people to be spending a ton of money on these programs. We want to make it affordable and a good fit for the operations that we have here in Hawaii. So one thing that's really great also about being involved with another larger group is that we get a lot of technical assistance, advice, guidance, and support from folks across the country who are doing GroupGAP just like we are. And it also gives us an opportunity to be in regular communication with USDA, which is very beneficial to our farmers and our programs here in state. So we want to talk just a little bit about food safety in Hawaii and the perception of it. A lot of times when we go out and speak to groups of farmers, there are definitely some concerns that are raised, what we call barriers in a farmer's mind to getting food safety certification. One of the things that comes up almost always at the top of the list is the cost. Farmers are concerned about the expense of food safety certification. And in Hawaii, in particular, everything is more expensive. So that's a pretty valid concern. They also are concerned about the workload, feeling that it's a lot to take on. And for our size operations, when they usually don't have very many people, certainly don't have a food safety team or a food safety manager per se, it is a lot to think about, taking on record keeping and all of the documentation that's involved. There's also sometimes a perception that comes up where folks will say, well, small farms aren't responsible for food safety outbreaks. Small farms aren't the ones that are causing all these big recalls and things like that. And we'll touch on that a little bit later, but I think for now, it's just really important to say that it's really not about the size of the farm. So we'll get into that a little bit later on. One of the other things that comes up as a barrier is that farmers feel like this is something that they just can't do on their own. And that goes back to, again, the support that they feel like they don't have in a small staff, small operation. And then this is less so, but it has come up in the past. It's starting to change a little bit, but a lot of farmers will say, well, it's not necessary. My market, my buyer doesn't ask for it. So these are the reasons that over time in Hawaii, food safety and food safety certification programs really haven't had a lot of traction. They haven't been given a lot of resources, and a lot of people have kind of stepped away from even worrying about it. So we'll talk about those again and what we've been doing to change that. But first, we want to kind of give you a snapshot of where things are currently in the state. So this is information that comes from the USDA Ag Marketing Service website, so you guys can look it up. But as of last month, there were 29 operations listed on the USDA site of operations in Hawaii that meet USDA GAP certification requirements. So out of all the farms that are in the state, only about 30 of them have that certification. We are actually responsible for a pretty big number of those, just about half, and that's through the GroupGAP program. We're planning to add more farms this year. So every year we're hoping to add new farms to our program, and those farms get certified, they get added to this list. The other thing that I would point out for this one is that FSMA and Harmonized GAP, which is the audit standard that we work under, are aligned. So what that means is that if your operation does grow big enough that you are needing to have a FSMA or an FDA inspection, you will be ready for that already, because Harmonized GAP, which is the USDA side voluntary program, it's very similar to the requirements that are in the federal Food Safety Modernization Act requirements. So we just like to point that out because there are FSMA inspections happening. People get very nervous about them, but it's really important to remember that Harmonized GAP will set you up very well for having a FSMA inspection, and you should be pretty well on your way to having a really solid inspection if that does happen. And just for folks who might have just come in, we will have a survey that we're going to get out to folks. Chess, is there anything you want to ask people to do for the pre-one?
Just, it should be the very first link in the chat if you click on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks.
So just wanted to come back to those barriers that we mentioned at the beginning. For a long time in Hawaii, food safety was sort of a dirty word or dirty phrase. And there's valid reasons for that, for sure. But today, the tide is changing. We see a lot different landscape than what we started out with when we first started running this program about 7, 8 years ago. So cost, that's always the top of mind concern. And we talked a little bit about that being a really big concern for farmers, that food safety certification is expensive. What we can say about that, first, in our program, GroupGAP, we work very, very hard to subsidize this. So while there is a fee for farmers to join our program, it is something that we work really hard to keep as low as possible, because in the background, we're writing a ton of grants to support our work. And so we do not charge the actual cost of what it takes to do this to the farmers. It's also important to note that over the last couple of years, USDA has provided a reimbursement for farms that get food safety certified. And we've worked with farmers in our group to make sure that they are eligible and can receive those reimbursements. So while there is a cost to it, we do try our best to keep it as low as possible. And we always are looking for opportunities for farmers to get reimbursed. So we will keep you apprised of that if you end up in the group. The workload, we understand this is a big concern. It is a lot of work to get to the point of certification, but really, that's what we're here for. We are the local assistants on the ground. We try to make sure that we and our network are helping our farmers with everything that it takes to get food safety certified. We also are always working to figure out ways to streamline this process. And so one of the things that we have done is really look for technology as a way to make this more efficient. We have come up with a partner that's a company called Heavy Connect, and they provide us with digital record keeping platform for our farmers to use. And that makes a huge difference, doing the records much more simple and easy when you have the record platform on a mobile device. And we also work really hard to customize those records so that it's very simple for you to fill it out. So while there is a lot of work to it, we're really here to support you in that and do as much of that heavy lifting for you or with you as we can. And we understand that you can't do it alone. So that point sort of works into the workload. We really are here to try to be your farm's food safety manager or your farm's food safety team. So there are things that you as the farmer will have to do. We can't fill out your records for you, but we will do a lot of the other work administratively that is needed for this certification. So we really want folks to get that idea that we are here to support you in this. That's part of the reason it's called GroupGAP. One of the other barriers we mentioned earlier is that a lot of folks feel that this food safety certification is not necessary. And I believe that probably about even 5 years ago, that was the case. But today, through our work with buyers, we are seeing a lot more of the requests for food safety certification, or at least documentation. We can say through our work over the last year or so that folks like Armstrong, Cisco, Fresh Point Hawaii, even Chef Zone and Waihata are moving towards asking for food safety certification. So if you are a farm that's looking to get into this commercial market or even institutional markets, it's a good idea to start working on that certification now so that you're well positioned to get into those markets. You already have that certification when you approach those buyers. And this kind of leads into the last concern or comment that comes up sometimes in these conversations, which is that we've heard a lot of times people will say, well, small farms aren't the ones who are responsible for these food safety outbreaks. I think it's really important, again, to point out that it's not about the size of your operation. It is about your practices. So no matter how big or how small your operation is, you can have contamination happening there if you're not paying attention to your practices, or if someone does something and skips a step, for example, not sanitizing harvest baskets or not washing hands when they leave the restroom. So these are things that can happen regardless of the size of the farm. What it comes down to really is about your certification showing that those practices that you have in place on your farm have been audited. They've been verified by a third party. Someone has come in and they've said, yep, this looks like it. You are doing everything you can to minimize the risk here. And so your GAP certification is kind of like insurance, that your practices are valid, they are supported, they have been verified. So those are kind of our responses to those barriers that folks mention quite a bit in food safety certification and the challenges around them. So we want to talk just a bit about the GroupGAP program at a glance. And for this one, we're going to start off by just talking a little bit about the prerequisites and then the costs, because these are always really big questions. As far as prerequisites go, infrastructure is very important. We do want to make sure that you have the appropriate infrastructure on your farm to succeed at this program. One of those things is proper restrooms, hand washing. We also are going to want to see what your surrounding area looks like. We want to really make sure, too, that there's going to be good communication between you and us. This is really important for succeeding at this program because to set up your farm food safety plan, to prepare your risk assessment, and to make sure that you're doing your records as you should be, we need to have regular communication. So ensuring that your communication and our communication to each other is solid is very, very important. We also want to make sure that you yourself have a personal commitment to this program. This doesn't work if it's us doing all the work and not the farmer. So we really need to make sure that folks entering this program are ready to join it and be a part of it and participate in it fully. As I said earlier, we will do a lot of the heavy lifting, but we definitely need that personal commitment from you that this is something that you want for your operation and you're looking to use it to get into these larger markets. The cost for our program, as I said, we try to keep it as low as possible. There is a yearly member fee. And so what happens here is that this money goes into the pot. And then every year when audits occur, the audit bill is paid from everyone putting their money into that pot. This year, our member fee is $1,000, and that will be assessed once a year once you join the program. That covers everything that we do for you every year. It is comparable to mainland GroupGAP programs. We actually have a number of other states that we work with who do the same thing. They charge $1,000 as well. And of course, we're all supporting this work with other grants and subsidies. And there are discounts on other services that you receive by participating in the group. So for example, the digital record keeping service that is provided to GroupGAP members, that's negotiated by us with Heavy Connect, and you folks, once you're in GroupGAP, would get that for free. So that is a savings of about initially $600 a year. And that's something that you can take full advantage of in the program. There are other services available. For example, the Hawaii Food Service Alliance has offered to transport product from GroupGAP farms that are certified for free. So should you need to move product between islands, that would be an avenue that's open to you by being in this program. I think I'm going to hand it over to Chess here in a second.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go over some of the other services and benefits that all farmers or organizations participating in our GroupGAP program will receive, and this is regardless of island. So like Lisa just mentioned, for certified farms in our group, once you do get certified, and if you have product that you're looking to ship inter-island, we have an agreement with Hawaii Food Service Alliance for free shipping for that certified product. We also offer the free access to our digital record keeping software, Heavy Connect, and that was initially a $600 a year fee per subscription, and we're super grateful to have a really awesome relationship with Heavy Connect, and we're able to provide that to our group members for free as well. Next, just the management of all required documentation. This includes your risk assessments, your farm food safety plans, helping to manage and monitor your records that you're completing on Heavy Connect, and just keeping all the required documentation that you're going to need for audit day organized and up to date. So members of our group, our food safety specialists, work with you to make sure that you have and maintain all those documents. And then lastly, technical training on the USDA Harmonized GAP or Harmonized GAP Plus standards. We provide that at the very beginning of the cohort cycle. We have about 10 classes, which are all virtual, where we cover the entire Harmonized GAP and Harmonized GAP Plus standards. So making sure that our member farms understand the standard that they're being measured against, and working with you guys to help fit your operation into the standard. We also provide some other training, so WPS or Worker Protection Standard training. Everybody on our team is qualified to provide that training to our member farms. And then other worker training support. We help a lot with everything from just simple hand washing demos to working with you to figure out concentrations of sanitizers for wash water. So broad spectrum of ways that we're able to help. And then lastly, just support throughout the entire certification process and beyond. So maintaining your certification on a yearly basis. We make sure that everything's up to date. And we also work with you to take away the load of communication between your organization or farm and USDA. We kind of act as the middleman there, and make sure that communication is smooth. And then we'll attend the third-party USDA audit with you as well, so you're not on your own. Next, we do want to mention a few for Maui and Kauai farmers. This first slide is just for Maui farmers. We're excited to offer a few additional benefits from a local sponsor. So for Maui farmers, the group gap fee has been reduced to $800 per year. So that's a $200 discount. We're also able to offer $200 a year in additional support for other food safety related expenses that you may need in order to move into compliance. So anything from ppm test strips for your water, getting proper harvest bins on your site, getting the correct personal protection equipment, or other equipment that you're going to need at your operation to get into compliance. For Maui farmers that do require water testing, we're able to provide for free quarterly water testing if that's something that you need. If you're on municipal water, it might not be a service that you need, but for folks on well water or surface water, we're able to provide the water testing for free. If you haven't had produce safety training, we can help you schedule that training, and then once you go through the training, get you a reimbursement. So if you are needing PSA training, we're able to support you guys through that. And then for Maui farmers who are able to achieve harmonized GAP or harmonized GAP certification within that year cycle, you will also get a $200 additional reimbursement once you achieve that certification. So super excited to be able to provide this to Maui farmers this coming year. And we hope we have some folks that are able to take advantage of it. Next, we do have some other additions for Kauai Island farmers. So we want to say thank you to the Kauai County of Economic Development for funding us through the Kauai Ag Farm Expansion Grants Program. So for Kauai farmers that are accepted into the GroupGAP program this 2024 and 2025, we're again able to offer a $200 discount for our membership fee. So that would be just $800. And then an additional $200 reimbursement for operations that are able to achieve their certification within the year. And lastly, just additional support for food safety improvements to prepare these farmers to enter the GroupGAP program. And there's limited funding on this portion of it, but once you apply to the program and we talk through your needs, we can assess what the best way to move forward would be. So next we wanted to talk about what our selection process looks like and what kind of farmers we're looking to have join our group. So first is we're looking for operations that are seeking to expand their market access and or meet buyer requirements. So whether you're looking for the first time to get into new markets, or if you have particular buyers that are asking for food safety certification, we're looking for farms that want certification in order to access or stay in these larger scale markets. Next, we talked about this a little bit before, but farmers that are really showing commitment to communication with us throughout the certification process, especially in the first year. We're more heavy on the communication just because we're gathering information, working through your first audit cycle, writing your farm food safety plan. We do, in the first year especially, have a bit more communication with our member farms. So being motivated and showing up for communication is really important to move the process along smoothly. And in the following years, once you have your certification and you're just working on that maintenance, unless there are like big changes in your operation, the communication expectation goes way down, which is nice for everybody. Next, important to mention that Harmonized GAP, the GroupGAP program, is only focused on fruit and vegetable producers. So we do not work to certify livestock operations. If you have animals on your farm, whether those are your family cats and dogs or domestic livestock, we work with farmers who have livestock and animals on site, but we do not actually certify any dairy, eggs, meat, but we're able to work with farms that have livestock on site. Next, just a completed application. We often get applications that are kind of half complete, lots of holes, and we're really not able to fully assess whether your operation is a good fit or not for the GroupGAP program without that completed application. So if you send us something over that has a bunch of blank spaces, we're gonna ask you to revisit that application. Once we do receive an application from you, we will try to reach out and make an initial farm visit. And this is where we do an initial site visit to assess your operations infrastructure, including restrooms, your water sources, and just general organization and cleanliness of your farm, looking at your post-harvest facility if you have one, checking out your restroom situation, and looking over the general setup of your operation. For food safety certification, there are a few key pieces of infrastructure that need to be in place. Most importantly, having a working restroom, whether that's a portable lua, a compost toilet, or a septic tank or something connected to the municipal system, all fine, but a working restroom needs to be in place. And if it's not at your time of applying to the program, we will want to discuss with you your plans moving forward to get that restroom in place. And then making sure that we really understand your water source is another important thing that we're going to want to do before accepting you into the program. We work with farmers that are hooked up to the municipal water system, and we work with farmers that work just off rainwater or surface water, and all are fine, but we need to have a good understanding of what you're working with, because there are different requirements and considerations that we need to take depending on your water source. And then lastly, during this initial site visit, we'll just take some time to talk with you, have a chance for you to ask any questions that you have about the program, talk with you about any challenges that you're facing or concerns that you have around food safety, and just get to know each other a little bit. For this cycle of applications, we're going to be reviewing and accepting them on a rolling basis. We're hoping to kick off this next cohort sometime in the summer, but we're going to be accepting applications just on a rolling basis throughout the rest of the year. For this next cohort, depending on who applies and what kind of workload we think that's going to be, and depending on North Shore EVP staffing, we're looking to accept a cohort size between 5 to 7 farms. So for folks that are interested in taking the next step to apply, the applications are available right now on our website. They're available in English and in Mandarin. So for the rest of this year, we're super excited to have all of our training materials, including the application and all of our class content translated into Mandarin. So this will be available for this next cohort as well. So if you are a Mandarin speaking farmer, or if you know any predominantly Mandarin speaking farmers who might be interested in food safety certification, we're able to support that with our translated materials, and also working with some local interpretation services. So if you go to our website, you'll be able to download our application. It's in a fillable PDF, and once that's all filled out, you just email it over to us, and we'll be in touch to schedule that initial gap analysis. Okay, now I'm gonna open up the floor for questions and answers. So feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions or throw them in the chat. And then we do have another short survey. You can scan the QR code to get to it. I'll also throw up the link to that in the chat.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Question. Yeah. So my question is regarding the free transportation we might get from, if we have a gap, we have a free transportation between the islands. It means they can, as long as we have maybe containers of GAP certified products, they will ship it for us for free.
Yeah, that we haven't done this yet because none of our farms have taken this offer up yet, but that is the plan.
I mean, just plan, not sure it's gonna work. Are you sure it's gonna work?
No, it's gonna work. I mean, what I mean is we haven't actually done it. So logistically, we need a guinea pig farmer to test it out. So the idea is that if you are certified, your product is certified, you can ship it using Hawaii Food Service Alliance and get it to whatever island you need to get it to. We haven't done this yet, so as far as exactly who we need to talk to on what island, that we're going to have to work out between you and the folks at Hawaii Food Service Alliance.
Okay. Wow, it sounds wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, because I don't have enough land to grow here in Oahu yet. So yeah, with just a couple of acres, it's kind of so small. Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Well, one of them was about the inner island, but I think you may have answered it. But it's not just to Oahu. It could be from Oahu to any other island
Right.
as well.
Right.
Okay, cool. The other thing is, I know that facilitated through North Shore EVP a few years ago, there was some COVID food safety funding. I didn't know if there was any other food safety improvement funding or grants that might be coming down the pipeline we might be aware of that would help us get in compliance, especially for infrastructure.
Yeah, that's a really good question. The COVID monies, I believe, are all gone, but we are continually looking for additional sources like that. So that's sort of like what we're doing here on Kauai with the county funding. We will be in touch. We have been in touch and will continue to be in touch with the folks at the Honolulu County offices, city and county offices, to support that because we do recognize that now for folks having so many more folks looking for certification, there are some little steps usually in between that people need to take. So definitely we'll keep that in mind. If you guys speak to folks, friends who work in the city and county, put a little word in that that's something needed because that always helps, for them to hear exactly what you folks need is really important to getting the ball rolling to get organizations that funding to disperse it.
So no current stuff that we should be aware of.
Not that I know of. There is one program that is not confirmed yet. So I don't want to say anything and get myself in trouble for speaking out of turn, but I'm keeping an eye on it because yes, that's what I'm looking for is similar type programs to that, what you were involved in the COVID era one. So yes. Got my finger on it, but I can't say anything else yet.
Cool, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the stuff that we got before was really helpful, not just for our general operation, but I think they actually came and did a little preview, and the impression that I got is that we're pretty close infrastructure-wise, but there's a few loose ends that I think would be good. So, keep my eyes open.
I will say too, just to throw it out there for folks who are here today and who might be listening later or friends, that if you guys do have specific needs, like okay, I want to get food safety certified and here's a thing or something that I need funds for, a thing that's lacking, it would be great if you share that with us by email just to one of the team. We can start to compile a list, and that is having actual data that comes from you guys, the farmers, is really helpful when we write a proposal to say, we want funding for this, and here's exactly why, and this is who it's coming from, this information. So feel free, if you don't mind, to share that because, when we write these proposals, we really want to be as specific as possible. Like, this is what we need the funding for. These are the people, the farms, in what counties, in what area is it going to help? So we would totally appreciate that, and we will definitely take it to bat for you.
Any other questions, comments?
I have another question. So in talking with Dea, it sounded like there's a cohort starting now, but then also next year. And I'm kind of tempted to jump into it now because we just have a lot more product coming down the pipeline. And I'm like, well, maybe I should open myself up to new markets, which ostensibly is the kind of bigger purpose of it all. But I think I'm still maybe not clear on like what the exact time commitment looks like, and what the scheduling of it might be. Like if it's, I think we talked about it, but I kind of forget if it's like 1 hour once a week or just like what it looks like to actually be involved.
Yeah, so for the first bit of the cohort, we do have the 1 hour once a week classes, which we do on Zoom. But if the timing doesn't work, we normally do it at like 9 to 10 in the morning, on Mondays or Wednesdays. But we also record all of those for folks to watch after the fact if class times don't line up. So there's that commitment, and then for homeworks and just farm visits, I would say we try to come out to the farm in the first year that we're working with you, like 2 to 3 times, for information gathering and then for audits as well. I don't know if I could give you an exact time. It also really depends on the complexity of the farm, how far, if they're keeping records already or if they're starting from nothing. But I think the complexity of the operation and then just communication is what makes the spectrum of time commitments so large. Anything to add there, Lisa or Dea?
I would just add that for this summer cohort, it's very likely that we will just rely on the pre-recorded or the recorded sessions from the spring this year, rather than doing live sessions in the summer. People are just so busy, and we feel like if we take a small number of farms in the summer, we're gonna really try to expect them to be responsible and watch the classes themselves on their own time. When we do this in the spring, we will have a live set of classes, but again, still once a week for about an hour. So yeah, I mean, you're looking at a couple of hours over the course of a couple of weeks, plus just the communication between us, which, like Jess said, can range a bit. But we do intend to have this next cohort this summer, one in the spring, so you can kind of think about if you want to do it now or do it later. Applications are accepted now all the time, so up to you.
Okay, and I guess related to that a bit, so say I participated in the summer session. I know everyone's situation is going to be different, but like ballpark, when would it be, do you think, that assuming we meet all the requirements, that we're actually get the stamp and now we're certified and now we could take our stuff to these places? Like what kind of, how long does the whole process take?
Right. If you're really organized and you jump into the records, and you know, we're having good communication, we can probably get you certified by the end of the year. We have had farms that have done it in 6 months. They're usually the ones that are super motivated and super organized, but it's possible for sure. We really can come out when we do that internal audit for you, which is the first like official audit that takes a look at your operation. If you pass that, then you are considered certified. It will just take a few weeks to get the certificate from USDA. Later in the process, your farm may also be selected for a USDA audit with someone from USDA or Hawaii Department of Ag. And that's, you know, it's just an additional audit. No big deal. If you've already been through it, you'll know what to expect. And if you passed, the likelihood is that you're not even going to get that year, but could happen.
Cool.
One question from Melissa in the chat. Can you join the cohort even if you don't have land yet? For that, I would say probably isn't the best call for you to try to join the cohort if you don't have land, just because we won't be able to audit you. So if there's no land or crop being produced yet, we won't be able to actually conduct an audit. To complete an audit, we need to observe a harvest. So if you don't have land or product yet, it won't be it really won't be a good investment of your money right now to pay for the process. But if you are super interested in watching the class recordings or hopping in on the Zoom, we're happy to share that with you if you're just interested in learning about harmonized GAP and the GroupGAP program more. There's any other questions, feel free to jump in. But if not, all of our contact information is up here. Feel free to email, text, call if you have more questions or want to talk more. But yeah, I think that's all we have.
If you happen to be on Maui or are going to be on Maui, we are going to be hosting a farm day on Maui in June. And that will be June 15th at Baldwin High School. So if you want to come and see that or talk to us in person, we'd be happy to have you. So watch for that information or email us and we'll send you the collateral.
All right. Have an awesome Friday, everyone. Enjoy your weekend. Hopefully it's not too rainy.
Thanks, guys. Aloha. I'm going to stop the recording.